Hello and welcome to episode 38 of Pixel Sift. My name is Gianni, and as usual, I'm joined by my co-hosts Mitch and Scott.
Hey, hey.
Hey.
It's always the same. Hey, hey. Just jump into it. On the line today, joining us over Skype, we've got John Kane. He's developer of Killing Time at Light Speed, a narrative adventure that came out yesterday. John, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Very welcome to have you, and we'll have a good chat about your game and some of the other topics that we've been discussing today.
Yeah, so we're also talking the way we play games is also changing, and the way we play and where we play those games is very different to what we may be used to. Today, talking spaces of play and what it means when discussing playing games
and designing them as well.
Designing them, yeah.
Scott.
Yes, we told you we'd be following up on this story as it progressed, and it looks like the Counter-Strike Go gambling controversy has reared its ugly head again this week, with some prominent YouTubers doing some ethically shady stuff.
That's right. That's what we've got on the lineup today. Let's jump into our first topic.
Pixel Sift. Pixel Sift? No, seriously, Pixel Sift. No, seriously.
Pixel Sift. So, as I just said, we have been covering the CSGO gambling issue for a while now, and more and more just keeps popping up about it. The most recent revelation has come via betting site CSGO Lotto and its owners Trevor and Tom Cassell, who, surprise, surprise, are also CSGO streamers. Now, this is fine on its own, but these guys have been making questionably and sketchy claims, all without divulging their huge clash of invested interest in the money-making sites themselves. Which obviously brings up huge conflict of interest cases.
Yeah, they've got videos out there, well, they did have at least, where they said you can make tens of thousands of dollars in 15 minutes by just going to this website, and the website being one that they own.
Yeah.
These are not sort of small-time streamers as well. These are people who've got, upwards of millions of subscribers, very big people within the sort of Counter-Strike Go network. Yeah, the betting and the gambling aspects of Counter-Strike Go seems to be something that we tend to be talking about a little bit about. This issue keeps popping its head up, and
it's because it's still growing as an issue, and something will come of it, because obviously, young kids gambling is a bit of a problem, along with all the other issues that have come out like this.
It does seem like with this competition in its infancy, people like to gamble at the end of the day, and they are finding ways to do that in the best way they can, and people are taking advantage.
These kids are as young as 13, they don't really know if they like gambling yet. But they are getting led down that path, unfortunately, at a terribly young age.
Interesting thing about this in particular, these guys are based in the United States, and there's sort of the FTC, which controls broadcast regulations and advertising standards and all of these things. There's regulations in place which basically say you have to disclose whether or not you are an owner of any particular advertisement and things like that, especially when it comes to things like gambling as well. And it's well known, and these guys know as well, that their audience is a younger fan base. It's people who are primarily going to be below the legal gambling age, and they're targeting these kids for this advertising to, I guess, take advantage of them.
So yeah, like Ryan Morrison, the video game attorney, he was quite adamant when he made an appearance on the ESPN podcast recently. He was like, at the end of the day, even if they do not have a conflict of interest, it is still exposing underage people to gambling, and that at the end of the day is where the baseline of it is, despite let's for a second remove the fact that they own the site, and that's already a bit not cool.
Very.
Yeah.
The disclosure there is not the is one of the issues.
One of the issues, yeah,
That's
but
extremely misleading. The whole thing, like you said before, it's not just a lack of disclosure though. They've made a concerted effort to deceive their viewers into believing their wins and time spent, on CS:GO Lotto was legitimate, which it was not and never has been.
Well, he does say that while there is a lot of evidence and there's a lot of evidence out there that says they could do it, they haven't really proved it for sure, but it's really not looking good for them.
John, where does this sit in your sort of thinking?
Well, morally, it's like they lied about A, owning the site, and B, it's gambling. You don't just make money off it. There's very strict rules in place, especially around the advertising of gambling. Like everything about what they've done is borderline illegal, and whether or not, it comes down with them actually being fined or shut down, like they've known from the very beginning that this is dodgy.
They did actually come out, Trevor Martin did actually come out and do a bit of an apology, and we've got a bit of audio to play of that one now, where he basically says, look, I'm really sorry about what happened, but, let's have a listen to it, shall we?
Go on.
Now, my connection to CSGO Lotto has been a matter of public record since the company was first organized in December of 2015. However, I do feel like I owe you guys an apology. I am sorry to each and every one of you who felt like that was not made clear enough to you. And I truly, honestly hope that you guys give me an opportunity to earn your trust back. Please also know that I am committed to making sure that my YouTube channel, as well as all of my other businesses, are in compliance with the law. This is why I do not condone minors under the age of 18 to use CSGO Lotto.
That is a man backed into a corner if I've ever heard one.
Interesting.
If you actually saw his video before that, where he's like, I haven't done anything wrong, blah, 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 blah. Like, he denied it. He basically denied it until the point where he had to be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe.
And this one here as well, he's actually pulled off his channel now. It's not available on there, so it's been deleted and re-uploaded by some of the journalists around the world. And
look, this wasn't even the first time they've been in trouble. Like, last year, Cassell was found to have been promoting multiplayer horror game Dead Realm on his channel without declaring his financial ties to the game. The game's publisher, 3 Black Dot. Which was founded with the help of Cassell and a few other video game makers. So, like, this guy knows what he's doing, to a point anyway. He's obviously young and has come up, in the streaming world fast, just like it does happen like that. But it feels like he's stepped in the wrong direction and really hasn't done anything about it. He hasn't done anything to rectify the situation.
Yeah, it's one of these things where, this person, Trevor Martin, said he started 6 years ago. Who knew that 6 years ago this could be a job, effectively?
Nobody. Well, and, very few.
Media is redefining itself and changing all over the place, but there are sort of, regulations and rules that are sort of like starting to guide the way that people can make money off media and who they're influencing and stuff. If you're in Australia, for example, if you have a YouTube channel, there's pretty strict advertising guidelines that apply to anyone who's online. Especially with this thing called native marketing or native advertising, which is basically they haven't properly declared it. If you're doing any of this sort of native advertising, you have to sort of provide customers with a prominently sort of visible cues to show that it is an ad, with logos and branding and acknowledge it and stuff. Very similar to what happens on community radio. They say that there's a this is a community sponsorship and all of this sort of thing.
There just needs to be transparency, I think, and he has not had that.
And I think the big factor as well, if for example, if Trevor Martin was in Australia, there are big restrictions that are done by the Australian Association of National Advertisers, which means that, and which is a voluntary code, but the Australian Communications and Media Authority has enforces that voluntary code for people who are advertising. And there are the first points are on there. You have to make sure that if you've got any advertising to do with wagering or products or services to do with wagering and betting and gambling, that it cannot be directed to minors, but people who are under the age of 18. It's a sketchy issue. It'd be interesting to see whether this sets up a legal precedent in the States if companies like Valve and stuff are now implicated in these particular issues, but people who are trying to make money off these younger streamers.
It does seem like Valve may need to account for some of this, because at the end of the day they own these skins, and
a lot of this is on Valve. They've kind of just happily let this happen. Actually, for a brief period, users clicking through to the CSGO Lotto from Steam were shown a warning that the site may engage in phishing, scamming, spamming, malware, and crap. However, Valve removed that warning completely.
Yeah, and I guess once you take away that element, and we talked about this, Darcy Smith, who was at League of Geeks, talked a bit about this with the Twitch bits as well last week, was that you're taking away that element of it actually being real money when it becomes like a skin, and it becomes easy for people to lose a lot of money, and who obviously don't have the maturity to kind of deal with it. So yeah, look, we said it's last time. It's obviously something that we're going to come back to because it will happen again in a different aspect. But now let's jump into our next topic and have a chat to John all about his brand new game.
Visit us on pixelsift.com.au.
So So John Kane is a developer from the just-released Killing Time at Lightspeed, which is a narrative adventure that exists on a futuristic but very familiar social media world. Now, John, can you tell me a little bit about your newly released game and what were some of the inspirations behind making it?
Sure. So in 2014, there was a game jam organized by Zoe Quinn called the Anthologjam. And in the lead up to that was when the Ferguson riots were happening in the States, and all of the news unfolding on that was happening through Twitter. And I was just sort of watching just huge amounts of people being hurt and upset and unable to do anything because I'm halfway around the world in Australia. And so the Anthologjam pops up and they're sort of wanting people to pitch ideas about, science fiction. And so I came up with this idea of, well, like, how can you explain that feeling of empathy but not being able to do anything about it? And yeah, I came up with the idea of that sort of time dilation effect where, if even saying something to a person, like, it's not going to get there for 6 months. Everything that you say or do is like, it's already too late.
There's also, I guess there's also a factor
Yeah.
of that even happening in social media these days. We often see this thing that where posts pop up again after many years and people jump in thinking it's new news or a new post or a new update, and people comment on that, and there's this weird sort of, time
It
dilation.
happened to me just the other day. I saw a post of new Rick and Morty coming out, but it was season 2. It
Yeah.
was from like last year. Like, damn.
What do you think it is about this? Sorry, go on.
Probably get this. A friend of mine has a podcast as well, and so he will have a conversation on that podcast, and then I'll listen to it, and then want to start that conversation with him.
Mhm.
But for him, that conversation was a week ago.
Yeah.
That's a big factor as well.
Yeah.
When you got these interactions between the characters in there and the way that you are sort of talking to people, you've got a sort of a limited sort of interactions that you can have, and you can say you can basically like the posts or you can do it, short back and forth. What do you think it is about the communication online that, we have these sort of interactions and, there is this, I guess you've obviously got the time delay in there as well. What do you think about social media interaction?
I think Twitter especially, and Facebook to a slightly lesser extent, you have there's no certainly there's no physicality to it. That you can't just give someone a hug, but there's that thing of replying to someone with just hugs, and it really doesn't get across any kind of emotional weight to it, and you're limited to very, very surface level interactions, and I think that loses a lot of closeness, but also that makes it really interesting.
Well, one of the things that you kind of explore within the game is this, the use of technology, and there's a divide between people as part of this, and exploring the way that technology is obviously bringing us together, but also sort of keeping us apart in there. Is that something that you think about when you're creating games like Killing Time at Lightspeed?
Yeah. I work in the web industry, and so I sort of see, you have a really huge divide between people who have access to all the new technology and have a new phone and have an Oculus and have an Xbox, and then people who are on a smartphone from a decade ago still, and the things that you have access to really do divide people into separate categories. And also, having crappy internet.
I think we're experiencing a bit of that divide right now.
Yeah.
Did I drop out?
Nah, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the feeling of helplessness is really what got me. Like, it got a real visceral reaction out of me. Like, I just thought, these people are experiencing something back where I came from as the character, and you literally can do nothing. And I guess, how did you write those particular scenarios?
Well, a lot of it is just things that have happened in my day-to-day life, communicating with friends overseas. You see people start dating or break up or have a shitty day or have a great day, and like, being also in the games industry, a lot of my friends are in other cities, and Twitter is just where everybody is. You just see a lot more life play out that way.
I really enjoyed the game. Very funny, a little bit dark and ominous at times. I was left feeling really uneasy, I guess, afterwards, like after I've seen like a really heavy kind of film. Do you like? There's this kind of a negative side of the whole futuristic technology in the game. Is that something that you does that come from a personal kind of view or feeling of the way we're going? I thought it was very interesting for someone that's obviously so enthralled in technology to kind of produce something like this.
At the time, I was really down on it. Or at the time of the first Anthology Jam, like I was really down on all social media and everything. I think Twitter has a long way to go, especially in sort of handling people who are abusive. And I mean, same with Facebook. But I think I'm having seen sort of what happened with Ferguson and sort of also just watching people get attacked through Twitter is very different to having also seen in Sydney. We had the gunman who took hostages in the Lint Cafe, and a lot of the CBD was evacuated. And seeing how that played out on Twitter actually was sort of the reverse, because on that day, like, it was chaos. No one knew if trains were safe. No one knew if the Harbour Bridge was safe, and people were just sort of volunteering their cars. Like, if you need to get a lift out of the city, come here and I'll take you home. And seeing that play out and seeing actually what can happen when people are in a position to help through social media gave me a lot more hope about it. I think the new version of the game is a lot more positive than the original.
I think that's one of the things, I guess, when you're observing in the game these events as they're happening, you do see, the light and shade of social interactions. A lot of the negative focus is obviously when people are getting, barraged by people internationally. Yeah. We see there's quite a few stories of that happening in Australia. But then you do obviously see these elements of humanity where people are actually coming together and joining up and following this sort of thread. So yeah, it's a very fascinating game. You can pick it up on Steam now. Yeah. Just came out yesterday. So if you get a chance to have a look at that, try it out.
Dude, loved it. Super relatable and realistic. I think that's why I was so involved in it. Like, and it affected me. Not in a bad way, but like it left me feeling questionable, I guess.
It's interesting. You look at the videos of it and you think, oh, this just looks a bit like, jumping on the internet, but it's amazing how quickly you're
just reels
so quickly engrossed in the experience.
And I love the game as well, like in the way that you can basically play it however you want, and you could really stretch it out to be a much, a really long game or quite a short game, depending on how involved you want it to be.
Yeah, how much you investigate the news articles, and it's like, so there's a lot of non-critical path reading in the game, like all the news articles and stuff. So, yeah, how much you dig into it is totally up to you as a player. Yeah. Sorry, the mic dropped out for a second before I jumped in.
Technology can sometimes bring you together, but sometimes it can drop out and then you lose 30 seconds of audio.
Hey, he's still here.
He's here. So let's just jump into our next topic now.
Pixel Sieve!
It's not Pixel Sieve, it's Pixel Sift.
Pixel Sieve!
All right, so yeah, video games have the ability to place the player in worlds far removed from the reality. These worlds can leave us with just as much of an impact as the player as any other gameplay element. I'm having a good time today.
Yeah, I've had a good one today.
But we're not only transported to other worlds in game, we can also now take our games to different parts of the world and other environments.
We're talking about, of course, all sorts of new games, like the recently released Pokemon Go incorporating
It's kind of snuck under
augmented reality.
Snuck under the radar there.
Did it?
It's
'Cause
a bit of a
all
sleeper
over
hit
my
for me, old
Facebook.
Pokemon Go.
I don't know, social networking has been telling me all about it.
It's
Yeah.
all about it, yeah.
Well, that's something, of course, is, we talk about this technology that allows people to play this game, but of course it's something that is reliant on you having, an up-to-date phone. And
Yeah.
there are people who out there who we all know, obviously, who are playing this game, but if you're not set up ready to go, then that's an experience that you are going to be kind of shut out from.
Pokemon
I believe
Go.
all Samsung Galaxy S3 users can't download the app.
Oh, really?
Which isn't that
Yeah.
far away,
No,
maybe
it's
you
not.
don't
That
have
is a good phone.
huge amount of cash. But yeah, this is an experience that obviously people are having this, huge shared experience of running out there and hopefully not running into traffic. But I'm sure that's going to be the next story that we do, is people not paying attention to the thing, trying to catch a Zubat and getting into this experience. This is sort of something that we probably wouldn't usually have, much to say if we talked about this 10 years ago. Vast majority of people would have been playing games maybe on a Game Boy, if that's the most portable thing you probably have, or on a console, sitting at a couch, or playing at a computer. And we've now got these sort of environments where you can jump into a game world, say with something like an Oculus Rift or a Vive, but you can also then walk around in that world as well with the Vive, for example, where you can enjoy and experience 3D space as part of this game experience.
I think, yeah, well, at the end of the day, I think people just want more ways to interact with the games they like, and whether that game comes out at you and like interacts with the real environment or you jump into it, I think people are just looking for more of that.
Yeah, I'd like the idea of different formats of games, reaching different people, and like you said, some people are going to like the consoles, and some people are going to like the mobile games. Some people are going to like VR, but some people aren't. Yeah, I don't know. I just really like the options, I guess, that we've got in this futuristic gaming world that we live in.
I think that the interesting thing about this is that there is that the aspect, we've got so many different ways to tell different stories and different experiences. If you take for example, like
games are stories. At the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's especially the same as doing journalism. You want to hear about people's experiences and have something that's relatable and sort of makes you think. You can take a game like one of the Oculus Rift games that you are playing in a completely 3D immersive world, but you can have just an immersive experience with something like Killing Time at Lightspeed, which is effectively sort of a web browser, and you're kind of looking at social media as you would as any social media that we have today, and there's still a very human story that's being told in those sort of environments.
Yeah, I know augmented reality games aren't new, but I think this Pokemon Go has kind of set a new precedent. I've never seen something kind of like this blow up as quickly and be as accessible. And who knows if it's got the legs. Yeah, sorry, John, go for it.
Sorry, I think the fact that it's Pokemon has like really just made it take off in the first day.
There are different, I mean, like, the Pokemon philosophy has always been bringing people together, and that's one of the reasons why Pokemon has never really been available. Well, the main Pokemon titles, anyway, have never really been available on console or any grounded hardware. It's because the Game Freak has come out on multiple occasions and said, look, these games are designed to bring people and make people interact with each other in real time, and they begrudgingly put internet capabilities in the games over the past couple of years, but at the end of the day, it's still they are on handheld systems, and this Pokemon Go is another example of it.
But a lot of my favorite games at the moment, and I'm sure this is the same with everybody, like I've got to the point now where I'm so involved in multiplayer, especially online games, that I almost can't disconnect anymore. And it's something about that social aspect. Not even if obviously I've got my friends and my group of people that I kind of play with. But it's not even necessarily about that, the social aspect of knowing people, directly. It's just the fact that you're out there with, just people in general. There's something good about that,
And there's the factor as well that you're telling a story to people about your experience, and it is
you're involved together in creating a story.
Yeah, and sharing that with other people is really sort of fascinating. Of course, we talked about Pokemon being the sort of the key factor as to why this has sort of hit its apex at the moment, and it's only been out for a day, but it's kind of hit this point where it's really very popular. But the core concept of it was available in Niantic's previous game, which was Ingress, which was still overlaying a game world across the real world and enjoying this sort of environment. So
some kind of combination between all of the formats of games, I feel like it's going to bring some kind of new realm or idea of virtual reality mixed with augmented whatever. And I think we're going to see a whole new kind of revolution of types of games and meets. So let's say, I don't know if this will work for all you. Laser tag, I guess we'll call it. I was going to call it QZAR or something, but that we have locally here.
A laser tag, yeah.
Yeah, laser tag meets, VR type thing. I think that's the next one I want to see. I know it does exist, but not in the kind of accessible level that I'd like it to be.
I think
one of the things I want to see, have any of you guys played a game called Subterfuge or Neptune's Pride?
No. Could you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so they're games that play out in real time. I think Neptune's Pride can play out over a month at least. Neptune's Subterfuge is like limited to 2 weeks, but the entire game plays out in real time. So if you send, a submarine to attack one of your friends, that happens, 20 hours after you've made that command. I think games like that, where it's taking into account not just real world space, but time as well, that's where it's going to get really interesting. Yeah,
that is really interesting, actually, because games are, especially at the moment, all about immersion. But where you're making a command, that's not going to happen until real time stuff, as if it would happen in real life. That's really amazing. It stretches it out to kind of be not just part of your life, but actually a main focus of it almost.
Well, think about this as well. You couldn't have a game like that where people are actually playing against each other over real time if we didn't have access to technology which allowed us to do that. It's not like you can play a game with your friend on the couch and then have a turn and come back in 20 hours time. That's probably not going to happen. So, games like this couldn't even exist if we didn't have this sort of,
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did this happen in history? People used to play chess over mail. People used to do this?
Yeah, they still do it. You can get the local rag around where the crosswords and stuff are.
Right.
There's some kind of chess-related thing there where, they give you something to solve and you have to, write in to, try.
I think I'm referring to,
I know what you're talking about.
Chessboard.
Yeah.
Actual games of chess.
Yeah.
What, mailing the chessboard? Or
No,
as in,
it's
mailing
knight to
your
E5
moves.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that sort of thing is, I guess, very lo-fi multiplayer where you can have these experiences with people. And
these things all started somewhere. Well, like we said earlier, and I've said 100 times, there is no original idea. It all's based on something else that you've heard or read somewhere, paraphrased.
That's right. Now, look, that's all we've had time for today, basically. So thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Pixel Sift and sticking with some of the audio issues we've had. John, thank you. It's been a pleasure. We recommend everyone go and check out Killing Time at Lightspeed. We didn't get a chance to even talk about your Australian Game Developers Award winning Mallow Drops either, which is another interesting puzzle game that's coming out from Gritfish very soon.
That's right. You can have me back on to talk about that one.
Very happy to. We'll definitely have to take you up on the offer. Now, if you want to check out some more information, including links to all of those games and information, you can go to our website, which is www.pixelsift.com.au. And Scott, we're on social media, aren't we?
Yeah. Find us at facebook.com/pixelsift, twitter.com/pixelsift, twitch.tv/pixelsift, and youtube.com/pixelsiftau.
That's right. And Mitch, for previous episodes...
Yeah, so you can go to our website to stream the episodes or subscribe to the podcast, either iTunes, Pocket Casts, or using the RSS link on our page. And yeah.
If you're on video as well, if you're a video fiend, then you can check us out on YouTube as well. We're on Twitch as well. However you'd like to listen or view,
all the things.
We're all on there. Thank you again, John, for joining us for this episode of Pixel List. We'll have to get you definitely back on in a future episode.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, thank you very much. This has been episode 38 of Pixel Sift.
We're out.
See you, mate.